Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. It's Thursday night. I'm here in Toronto. My name is Sean Benson, and I'm one of your hosts. It's 8:30 p.m., and yeah, I'm sweating in my office tonight. It's a hot one, and I'm so excited for our guest tonight. Every show is special. We had our host chat last week, and if you were with us, you know that was a special one too. But I'm so excited for our guest tonight and his companion, and also for many of you who are new to the show. I know a lot of you join each week depending on who the guest is. And this week we have a lot of new names watching. We're very excited about that. We have the Zoom show where you can interact live with us. And then also you might be watching on YouTube live or at a later date or listening on one of the podcasts. So we're super excited you're with us here at Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. Every week I get to introduce Sensei Nicholas Suino. It's a great honor. I take for granted sometimes that I get to call this gentleman not just a teacher, but a friend. And his palmarès, he's an 8th Dan in Iaido, he's a 6th Dan in Jiu-Jitsu, a 6th Dan in Judo. And we talk about this every now and then, but if I'm not mistaken, and he can correct me, he's written 16 books, either alone or co-authored. And we glance over that sometimes, but writing books is so incredibly hard because you have to sit down alone and just do the work. You don't get to do it in front of a group of people. There's no reward for that. And I just want to say, Sensei Suino, where do you find the time and the discipline to sit down and write or co-write 16 books?
Well, I'm glad you're in my corner, but the number is not quite to 16 yet. I'm working on it, getting there.
Okay.
You know, it's like anything else, and we'll talk about this, of course. We always do in the martial arts. You got to show up and you got to do the work, and that's true in whatever endeavor you have. Thanks for that introduction, Sean. It's always such a pleasure to see you. I'm really angry that we haven't seen each other in probably 2 years now, but one of these days the borders will open. We'll be able to train together, and I'm really looking forward to that. Each time we do this show, it falls to me to introduce Randy Dauphin Sensei. Those of you who have been on the call before know him well, but I know we have a number of visitors. So let me just give you a quick rundown. I don't want to take too much time with this. I think I've known Randy for well over 25 years. He's a 7th degree black belt in Shorin-ryu Karate. He's a 4th degree in Aishin-ryu Iaido. He's a 1st degree in Shito-ryu Iaido with the Canadian Kendo Federation. He's had many victories in competitive karate, including the Matsumura Challenge, the Windsor Open, Ontario Championships, and many more. He's just a guy who's up for a workout, whether it be in the CrossFit range, agility, body weight training, martial arts, or anything else. Anytime he and I are in the same city, we find a way to work out together. And I'm happy to say after many years, he's graduated from martial arts student to good friend. Randy, how are you?
I'm great, Sensei. Thank you so much for that introduction. I can't wait to see you. I think the last time we saw each other was at New Year, like just after New Year's in 2020. Like Christine and I came down literally just after New Year's Eve to come and hang around with you and Pam and do some training. And that's entirely too long. Like, I don't think I've ever gone 2 months, I think is probably the longest I've gone since seeing you. And it's been way too long. So thank you so much for that introduction. And I hope Pam Suino is working on the tunnel because we're working on it on our side. I get every week to introduce Sensei Legacy and our guests of honor. So Sensei Legacy is a 10th degree black belt, and he was awarded that by his teacher, Anthony Sandoval. He's a member of the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame. And like Sensei Demura and like Sensei Suino, he's also an author. He's authored most recently this book, The Elite Fighter. He's been a student of Harold Warden, Benny Allen, Richard Kim, and Anthony Sandoval. And actually, he received a black belt in Iaido from Sensei Suino and trains in that art as well. And tonight, I thought I would just say a couple of stories about Sensei Legacy. He once drove me to the Thames River in London, Ontario. And we came out in Storybook Gardens, and he pointed at the river. If anybody knows Sensei Legacy, they know he doesn't really like water when he goes in the shower, he tries to get out as fast as possible because he doesn't enjoy that. But he pointed at this spot in the river and he said, you know, Randy, you see that spot right there? He said, one time I was in that river with Benny Allen, who was one of his very first karate teachers. And he said they were doing sticky hands in the river. And this is probably in like, I don't know, I want to say like 1976. And this will tell you something about the relationship that they had. They're there alone. And he said, and Sensei Legacy doesn't like water. And Benny Allen's quite a bit taller than Sensei Legacy. And Benny Allen has his back to the water coming to him. And Sensei Legacy's standing there. And as they're doing sticky hands and Sensei Legacy is uncomfortable a little bit, all of a sudden Benny Allen kind of smiles at him and gives a yank with his hands. And Sensei Legacy said to me, I came out of the water like a porpoise. He said, I flew into the air. He said, and then the water carried me down the stream. He said, and by the time I dragged myself out to the edge of the water, Benny Allen was up sitting on a rock laughing at me as I was trying to get out. And I think that's a really good story about Sensei Legacy and one of his most primary influences in the type of relationship that they had. And another thing I just want to say about Sensei Legacy is in his 50 plus years in martial arts, he's created an incredible community. And the community is something that has a very family feel. The people who are in that community, we all feel like family to each other. And that's something special. And I just want to thank him for that. And now I got to tell you, I have been so excited since my first contact with Thanh Nguyen that we were going to be talking to Sensei Demura, who I consider to be a living legend in martial arts. The other night, my student, Robert Slumsky, was doing a test call. And when I walked out, Sensei Demura was there on this TV screen that we have in the dojo. And I was like, oh my God, Sensei Demura is here in this dojo right now. And, you know, the hair on the back of my neck kind of stood up. My heart started to beat a little faster. You know, and I want to, before I start to talk about Sensei Demura, I just want to say thank you to Thanh Nguyen for helping us so much. He's been a very gracious person. He's been very helpful. And I learned today, just on this call, that he has been a 30-plus year student of Sensei Demura, 30-plus years with Sensei Demura. So according to Sensei Legacy, he's not a quitter because he's been in martial arts for more than 30 years. And one of the things that was really cool is he told me that when he got married, Sensei Nguyen's dad came and thanked Sensei Demura for helping to raise him. And what he actually said was, he dropped me off at the dojo. My dad dropped me off at the dojo and he never came back. That's what he said. So that's a good dad, I think. But we have that in common because when I was married, my father stood in front of all the people at my wedding and said, thanks Sensei Legacy for helping to raise me. Sensei Nguyen, thank you so much for being here tonight and helping us with this. Sensei Demura, he was born in 1938 in Yokohama, Japan. You can do the math. At the age of 9, he started karate and kendo. Before probably everybody on this call, almost everybody, he got his Shodan in 1956. And in 1957, he won the East Japan Karate Championships. Some of his senseis have been Asano Sensei. In 1959, he started training with Terashinken Sensei in kobudo, a living legend in kobudo as well. He's trained with under Sensei Sikia Fujito. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. In Kogen Ryu Nijitsu. And both Don Drager and Dan Ivan helped him to immigrate to the United States in 1965. In 1971, he was the rank of 5th Dan already. And just, if you didn't know, that was the year I was born. So he was a 5th Dan when I was born. Through the 70s and 80s, Sensei Demura has wrote a number of books. Like he and Sensei Suino have that in common. Great authors, written many books. It's more than, I think, 10 books. One of them being Shito-ryu Karate, which is on my bookshelf. In 1980, Sensei Demura became involved in one of the things that he's very famous for, which is the Karate Kid series and those films. He was the stunt double of Pat Morita, and he played Mr. Miyagi, who Sensei Demura has appeared in more than 11 feature films. As I mentioned, the Karate Kid Part 3, the next Karate Kid, Masters of Martial Arts, and he's the subject of the 2015 documentary, The Real Miyagi, which I actually kind of agree with that. That's kind of what, I'm a big Karate Kid fan, and having the Real Miyagi on this podcast is super exciting. So here's a number I just want to throw out to you. He's been training for more than 74 years, and today he's a 9th Dan. So he's not a quitter 3 times over, right? So the couple words that come to mind when I think of Sensei Demura are the word martial. And the definition of the word martial is of or appropriate to war and warlike. Another word is art, the definition of art. The expression of application of human creative skills and imagination, typical in visual forms such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty and emotional power. Definition of legend, an extremely famous or notorious person, especially in a particular field. Definition of dedication, quality of being dedicated or committing to a task or purpose. I would defy anybody to tell me that Sensei Demura does not encapsulate all of those definitions. And I am so excited to have him here tonight and learn from him. Sean?
Thanks, Sensei. Before we get to our guests, I just want a couple housekeeping notes to everybody watching, especially if this is your first time. At the bottom of the screen, if you're on Zoom, we have the chat button, and we want you to engage with us and ask us any questions you have. And what's going to happen is Robert will vet the questions. Robert's off screen running things right now, and he'll pass those on to us. He just pinged right down, so you get the red thing that lets you know that's where you ask your questions for Sensei Demura. And we're really excited to have you be a part. One of the things we do at this show is we try to become a little bit of a living history. You know, we want to not just leave it to the old ideas of who the 1800s and early 1900s masters were, but today's. And so we're really excited that you get to be a part of that. And then the other thing is this is, you know, 6 adults on a show chatting. And if you hear words or ideas or concepts that offend you or you don't like, you can take it up with your sensei or your pastor, or you can swallow your problem, because this is just your opportunity to listen to adults chat. And we're not going to cater that to you, but we are glad you're here. And with that, I just want to say, Sensei Demura and Thanh Nguyen, what a pleasure it is to meet you both tonight via Zoom. Sensei, how are you tonight?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep.
And yep.
I do it every day in the diet rest for 10.5 hours. I'm really tired.
Well, we'll keep it simple and concise for you, Sensei. And I'll start with what we like to ask all our guests, which is what brought you into the dojo when you were a child and what kept you there?
What's it?
What brought you into the dojo in the beginning?
Well,
what kept you?
Mr. Asano, he had to move away, so he don't want to teach anymore. So he introduced me to Sakagami Dojo. So I started Kendo over there, and then right after Kendo, they would do karate. But I'm too young to practice karate. But his wife, I watch every night after the Kendo training. So his wife said, "Are you interested in karate?" I said, "Yes." Then, okay, I talked to my husband. So that's why I gotta get in there. But every night I got an injury. So my parents don't want to do karate. They never come see me in my karate tournament.
So you're very young doing this and you're getting hurt doing it. What did you love about it? Why did you keep doing it?
Well, that time karate is not the same today karate. They just punch it, just go through all the way through. I broken jaw. broken nose, poke the eyes, kick the shin. That's kind of the way they fight. So then first in the Shodokan tournament, I see it. And Mr. Mikami and Mr. Kanazawa was fighting. And that was so exciting. And after that, I started training that way.
You knew you wanted to fight the tournaments.
Yeah, the different kind of tournament.
So by the time you were fighting in the tournaments, were you fighting with that same hard breaking jaw, hitting shin style?
Well, before that tournament start, that's why we were fighting just kumite, poke the eyes, and punch the mouse, and you have to block it. But the tournament said non-stop, no contact sports. So I started future that way to go. So that's why I started practice that tournament style karate.
And as someone who is, I believe, our longest practicing guest, I love that I get to ask you this question. What do you think about the way you started training at such a young age and how tough and blood and guts it was compared to how you see people train today? How do you like it? How does it feel?
Well, that time I don't know, so that's why I thought that is okay. But now I don't want to do it.
I totally get that. And how then, I want to touch on your tournaments for a moment, but how did the kobudo show up for you? Was that something you looked at and knew you wanted to do, or did somebody bring you along and introduce you that way?
Kobudo was Mr. Tyler was living in Mr. Tagami's dojo. So I go to the dojo earlier, so he started practice ball, and I just follow it. And then that's why I learned from his weapons.
And let's go back to your first tournament. How did that come about? And was your first tournament where you won, or was the championships later for you?
I won in 1961. The first all mixed tournament, Goju-ryu, Wado-ryu, Shito-ryu, Shodokan, all combined tournament. And each province, maybe 2 people. I was one of Kanagawa province prefecture in a competition. And the final, I was a Shodokan guy from Tokyo, and I had to fight. So I won 61, that's it. Mm-hmm. After that, I changed my life. Then after that, 1965, I came to United States.
And did you know you wanted to come to the States prior to meeting Don Draeger and Don Ivan? Was that something in your mind?
But Don Ivan invited me, and Don Draeger, Mr. Sato helped me in the American embassy for visa. Then I come to the United States, and in 67, I think I started Japanese village and the show business.
Quickly, Sensei, before we get to that, because I'm really excited to talk to you about that time in your life, Sensei Suino, do you have a question for him about what we're looking at in his room right now?
Sensei, that mon behind you, it looks like the Asian New Iaido mon. Is it a family crest, or where does it come from?
That is my family crest, and I register.
Yeah, it's the same one that the in Japan that the Asian New group uses.
Yeah, many people they use it. But as long as they don't use martial art, I don't care. A lot of lessons they use it. I don't mind.
Sensei Legacy and I have that crest emblazoned on our body forever. We have your family crest emblazoned on our body in between our shoulder blades.
Really?
Yeah. If Sensei Demura asked, if I would probably show, but only if he asked.
Should we ask Sensei?
Good. Ask.
Do it.
All right,
That-
we're gonna see it.
Here we go.
Oh wow, it's pretty much identical. Yeah.
And that's called Ken Katabami, the very popular
Did it come through on the screen?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, Sensei. As did your rippled musculature. Ayo. Well, that's awesome. What a connection.
It's quite common. It's actually the crest. So it's a lot of people use it like Sensei say, but you know, Sensei registered it for karate organization worldwide. So
Well,
Yeah,
that's great. I know
and then-
one thing for sure is that now, after today, I'll never look at my back and not think of Sensei Demura. If I ever see my back, I'm always going to think of him, and I'm super proud of that.
This is more Mr. Sakagami, the same common, and Mr. Nakamura, same common.
Sensei, before we jump to LA, I just want to ask you, when did you know that this was going to be your life? You're a young man, you're doing martial arts, you're doing pretty well in the tournaments, you're winning. At what point did you go, this is it, this is who I am, this is what I do?
Well, I was always argue with Mr. Sakagami because he's teaching different. I'm teaching there, so I like to prove myself. So that's the reason I come to the United States. I'm on my own way.
Mm-hmm. And you land in 1965 in Los Angeles, which for me, I mean, I have such an imagination around that time. I lived there for 10 years. I love that city. How was it for you getting off that plane and going into that city for the first time?
Well, I got from Vietnam War, and soldier I was teaching in Japan, and he told me America is a real good place. You leave a suitcase on the street, and then next day go over there, you still have it. And I come over here with exactly the same. And I was living then Ivan in the garage, and I want to go someplace, and then pick me up, and I shut the door. So don't open, shut the door, keep open. That was 65.
Uh-huh.
And the car parking space, they never lock the door.
Mm.
So then, little by little, problem come up. People start to see stealing, and the people have to lock them up. Right now, you lock them up 3, 4, lock, and arm crack. You have to put them on. That's today living. The big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, do you remember what neighborhood you were in when you landed, when you started in Los Angeles?
Yeah, that's pretty nice neighbors.
Was that in Hollywood or was that in further south?
And I come to Orange County.
Okay, right on. So you've been in that area ever since?
Yeah. Well, even Hollywood was a nice place to go, but today, no.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And did you find that people were receptive to your martial arts and were, you know, was it a bit of an explosion when you got there? I mean, you hit the ground running and formed relationships pretty quickly, didn't you?
Yeah, I was pretty good. And for example, I was at LA City College. I put a demonstration, and I did a demonstration in Nunchaku, and Bruce Lee came over, and he introduced me himself. But I don't speak English that time, so then Ivan translated. And after that, I go to the Black Belt magazine maybe once a month. And then Bruce called me, and he always comes to see me. And we go a cup of coffee. And one day he bring over Steve McQueen, and we went to a coffee shop, and the waitress come up and said, "Are you Steve McQueen?" He said, no, why? You look like her. Oh, that's why everybody look at. And after nobody show up. Yeah, it's a funny story. And Pat Morita, he likes the Chinese food. So one day he called me and said, you want to go Chinese restaurant? So I went over there, and his manager said, waitress, don't people coming in here. So don't bother him. So then one waitress come up, said, can you give me an autograph? He signed them. Then next one come up, next one come up, next one come up. Then he was really angry, but he doesn't say anything. Then next one, the camera. People bring the camera, one after other. He knock it off. He said, knock it off. And he get up and then he go away. So that's the happening.
Yep. Yep. And when Bruce Lee approached you and wanted to talk to you about the nunchucks, did you know who he was at the time? Was this after he had exploded, or was this early as he was beginning to?
No, but then Ivan told me he's an actor.
Okay. So you met him before he became Bruce Lee.
Yeah, he was a Green Hornet. He's a pretty famous time already.
And as I understand it from the research, he modeled his nunchaku behavior in his movies, etc., after his work with you. Is that correct?
He was reading my book. Then he asked me a question. What you do this? What do you do that? So I just answer for that. That's why I know him. Personally, I don't teach much.
Right. Yep. And when you watch the movies and you see the style, which is very much a movie style, what do you think of that? What do you think of the, the movie nunchucks, the movie martial arts that was being done?
Well, I don't want to speak too much, but anyway, that's a real trick.
Right.
Film makes it really slow and then make movement much faster.
Mm-hmm.
And sound make it really look good.
Yeah.
That's show business.
That is show business. Well, if you don't want to say anymore, we could leave it at that, Sensei. I hear you.
Yeah.
And then by 1971, you ranked in your 5th dan. Was that a significant time for you?
Yeah, Mr. Sakami, I invited him to the United States. He came over and he gave me in front of a people.
And you're living in Orange County at this time. You're teaching. You're helping movie actors with their martial arts. And are you thinking, I'd like to do this too? I'd like to get into this aspect of the business?
Yeah, kind of it, yeah.
And so how did you go about that?
What?
How did you find your way in? How did you get introduced?
I'm in the how did you get the movie?
Oh, and first movie I was 1977, The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I have my friend, he's a professional wrestler. His name Great Jonell. And he called me, said, hey, you want to go see that movie interview? So I went over there. And they're talking. I have no idea what they're talking about. Then after that, almost everybody gone. 12 people stayed there, all other people gone. Then guy come up and said, here, sign the paper. So I signed up because Jonell signed them, so I signed them. And after that, I find that I had to fight with tiger and the lion and the bear.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you teach me how to do it, and I asked called Brian McMillan. He's the animal trainer. So I said, oh yeah, sure. So then I start training at the Japanese village for probably 8 weeks.
Okay.
And he bit me and he pushed me down to the wall, a lot of stuff, but I learned that. So then in 1977, I went to the January, I went to Santa Croix, Virgin Island. And we started doing the job. Was not too bad.
Now not a lot of people talk about this actor anymore, but how'd you like working with Bert Lancaster? He's one of my favorite.
Yeah, he's a real nice guy.
I'm glad to hear it. Sensei, don't offend. You had a question you wanted to throw around?
Well, before, like, so I'm always interested to hear whatever any of the senseis have to say. But before I ask the question that we had been discussing, I would like to ask Sensei Demura, does he have a favorite kata, a karate kata, a favorite kobudo kata, something that he really resonates with him, that and why he feels that's important, why it's his favorite?
I practice Seijin, and I was introduced by Sai, but right now my arm doesn't move too good, so I like to do the bow. That's my favorite one.
And Bo, did you learn that from Sensei Terashinkin? Is that?
Yes, huh?
Thank you very much for that, Sensei. The question I want to go around the horn with everybody on is just about the importance of being a student. And Sensei Thanh Nguyen, I'd like you to chip in. We usually start, normally we start with the highest rank, but I think we'll go in reverse order today. Like, what is the importance of being a student and a good student? Your thoughts on that when I ask that question. And so I'm going to throw it first to Sensei Benson, and then we're going to go to Sensei Suino. No, sorry, we'll go Sensei Benson. We'll go to you, Sensei Nguyen, then Sensei Suino, then Sensei Legacy, and we'll end with Sensei Demura. What is the importance of being a great karate student, and what do you think it is that makes one that? Sensei Benson.
Thanks, Sensei. I think that what makes one that is fundamentally just doing what your instructor tells you, and being, as we talked about last week, being honest with your instructor about where you're at in your training, so that what they tell you to do is in line with your needs. And I've had both experiences, being utterly transparent and not. And so for me, a great student is honest with their sensei and then does what they get back from their sensei. But to me, the importance of it, and you know, Hanshi's on the call and he uses the word that's so important to me, which is roots, is that I'm a teacher, and so I have to be a good student if I'm going to pass on to anybody the thing that I'm getting, because otherwise the roots disappear. And I want people 2 generations that I'll never meet, like my students, to have the same roots. It'll change a little, but have the roots I got. So that's really important to me, is to be part. I'm a lover of history, but I'm also a real respecter of those who've come before me. So that's why it's important for me to be a good student.
Thanks so much. How about you, Sensei Thanh Nguyen? What do you think about that?
To me, I think it's loyalty. Just, you know, like when you and I was talking about earlier, you know, when you go through time, people comes and goes, you know, 5 years, they disappear, they might come back and they disappear. But the important is just being loyal and just stick with it, and just, you know, be respectful to your sensei and the legacy that he has, and trying to continue that legacy. Just, you know, learn as much as you can, but also have the open mind and the ability to have your own idea and concept and carry on the legacy he bestowed on you. So those are a couple things that come to my mind at this point.
Thanks so much. It's really good to hear your perspective on that as a person who's been in martial arts for 30 years. Sensei Suino, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to echo those things and just say that powerful energy and enthusiasm to follow the path of your instructor is so important. You know, in our dojo, the first 2 words we teach our new students, one is sensei, so they know who to refer to, and the other one is height, right? Height. And that isn't just a word, it comes from here. When we ask our students to do something, they need to do it with full energy, full commitment. I do that. My best experiences with my teachers were that I would have done anything for my teachers with great energy and conviction. And that made the difference between me being a crappy martial arts student and a good martial arts student. And my best students are the same way. They give me everything.
Thank you so much. It's funny, Sensei Fumio, I'm going to tell you that I did a recommendation last night, and a brown belt came out, and his kata performance was really, really good. And I told him, the thing I dislike about your performance most was the way you walked out onto the tatami. You walked out like such a schlub, and then you did such a good kata, right? You should walk out with a little more energy and a little more intensity as you come out. What I said to him was, you might have only been doing this for 6 years, but the people who are going to watch you have done it for 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And if you don't take it serious, I can tell you that they do. So I really like that. Sensei Legacy, what do you think of? I know you have deep thoughts about student and the importance of student.
Well, I think as a student, you're loyal to your style first. Your sensei is the link to the style. The senseis during your lifetime may change, but the style is the same. That's why we're classical martial artists. Such as, like Shorin or Shotokan. And finally, my line is student, the title student will earn you all the other titles. So train hard. You don't look for gradings, you just train. Your sensei will tell you when you're ready. So
thanks so much.
I'm a student today, and I always will be.
Thanks so much, Sensei. So that's what I was hoping you would say. The greatest title is student. I've heard you say that so much, and I love that. I think about it all the time. Sensei Demura, what do you think makes a good student? Importance of being a great student?
Well, I teach people call right away say hi. We don't call us. Too many people, they call us. People don't understand what us means. I trying to teach karate to make the perfect person. So you go to company working, if you say us, people don't like it. They say hi. That's why I teach that.
I like that you said to make the perfect person. I love that, Sensei. I'm just going to chip in really quick. One of the things I always said to my students who come here and everybody is that I was never really good at much. Like, I wasn't great at my basics. I wasn't great at kumite, like in comparison. But one of the things that I say, I feel in my heart that I was always good at was being a student. And I still feel I'm good at being a student. And being a good student is the thing that brings me a lot of great satisfaction at this point in my life. There's nothing that makes me prouder than when Sensei Legacy or Sensei Suino will say to me, nice cut, nice punch, good block. And you have to be a good student to really appreciate those compliments from your teacher. So that's my thinking. Sean, you got anything else rattling around there for you that you want to get us going with?
I do, actually, but what a great question. And for the people who are a little newer to the show watching, the idea that we have Sensei Demura and Thanh Nguyen sitting here, it's so fundamental to what we love about the show. And I think that's why Sensei wanted to ask that question, because it represents so clearly one of the most fundamental things that the four of us hosts believe this is about. So, I understand it's to help make the show a little easier for you, Sensei, and all that, but it's actually become a visual representation of what we find to be so fundamentally important to all this. And actually, I wanted to ask you about that, Sensei Demura. In terms of style, you started with Itosu-kai karate, and then, we're sort of touching on your time in the 70s in Los Angeles and Orange County. And around that time, you wrote your book, Shito-ryu Karate. So what do you consider to be the difference between the Itosu-kai and the Shito-ryu? And I know you ended up leaving the Shito-ryu. Can you talk a bit about your styles and what they mean to you?
Well, I originally come Itosu-kai. Itosu-kai, and then I come to the United States. Dan Ivan, he was a Shodokan. So I started teach Shodokan. Then 67. He retired, so I take over his property, and then I start teaching Shito-ryu, which is Itosu-kai is a Shito-ryu. But Mr. Sakagami don't want to call it Shito-ryu, Itosu-ryu. But Kata is basically all Shito-ryu kata, not Itosu-kai kata. But, so I just changed the Shito-ryu. Then after that, his son said, "You get out of there." So I quit. Then I changed to Bunkai.
Yep.
Right after the Bunkai, I just registered name, the United States. So since from there, Shito-ryu Bunkai is my name. Genbu is Gen is a professional. Bu is the Budo. Gen is the original. Bu is the martial art. So that's why I call that Bunkai. You have to make a good people. Well, I'm expecting one of the day I have to make the president of the United States. That's why I want to be.
Mm-hmm. So you've kept a through line with your style. You've just changed the names based on where you were and some of the politics around it.
That's right.
That's very cool. And did you write the book because you felt there wasn't enough information out, or what made you sit down and write that first book in 1971?
Well, that time was a publisher that wanted be just the basics part. So I just then put all basics together. Goju story, what are you? So I wrote it, I give it right away. Nobody gave it to him. So that they're just printing. That's why story book coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the good information there. So I'm making new one right now.
Got it. So you're right. You're writing a better version of that book, you believe?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Sensei is actually very busy. He's been writing a lot of books. There's a lot of books that's coming out.
So that's thanks for that, Thanh Nguyen. That brings me to an interesting thing that I was going to get to later, but you know, you were born in 1938. You are truly, you can accept this or not as you wish, a living legend. You deserve to retire to yesterday if you want it. I don't mean stop training, but what keeps you motivated to go, you know what, that book needs to be clearer, or I'm going to go train tomorrow and I'm going to keep teaching my students? What keeps that motor for you?
Well, I was watching a student and they come up from you can stand up on one leg. Then maybe a few years later, they can stand up one leg. And you watch them, I prove it. I help him to just prove to good. So that's the reason I start teaching karate more. And my job right now, make sure all instructors doesn't go wrong direction. So if something wrong, I just call them up and say, don't do that, quit it. So that's why I give the instruction right now.
You know, I mean, if I may elaborate, you know, Sensei is, Sensei is truly extraordinarily dedicated to karate, not just karate, but to all of us as students. I may be speaking for Sensei, but I think he felt a sense of obligation to just continue teaching and just thrive and help us be better people in the world. Sensei he's gone through a lot physically, recently the hematoma in his head, so it's left him pretty much physically a little challenged when he mobile wise, a little bit challenged, and Sensei is going through dialysis every day, 10 hours straight every night. So you can see the dedication and the will that Sensei is putting out, and Sensei is still willing to travel to meet people and teach karate throughout the states and the world. So it's a testament to Sensei's will and his love of martial art.
That's fantastic. Hanchi, did you want to say something? And then we'll go to Sensei Dauphin for a question.
Yeah, I would like to ask the master defines it as a sense of duty. If it comes from a sense of duty as a servant of the martial arts.
You feel like you have a sense of duty to keep teaching.
Yes, I want everybody go into right direction of karate. And right now, Orange County have so many groups have a mixed martial arts, but we don't want that stuff. Just go to traditional karate. Everybody should run that way.
Absolutely, that there's a sense of duty from Sensei to continue to teach martial art and trying to make turn people into good people. You know, I myself is one of many examples who just basically a dojo rat. You know, I like I said earlier when I was telling Mr. Dopin here, but my father dropped me off at the dojo, and that was it. And then from there on, every day it was just me and Sensei. You know, I'll get to the dojo early, 3:30. Class start at 4:30. I'm here on with my bike at 3:30, and we train. And Sensei, the dojo rat is because there's a lot of us. I myself is one of many who, parents are, busy with, chasing after American dream, being immigrants or whatnot, or whether they're single family, parent, or divorced parents or whatnot. So the dojo has becoming our sanctuary, and Sensei kind of like, there's a sense of duty that Sensei had to kind of take us all in and kind of raise all of us up as men and women that represent, and contributing to society and the world. So yes, there is a sense of duty that Sensei has, and that's why he's driven to keep pushing on, even though he's going through dialysis, and every time Sensei travel, we have to ship the dialysis to the destination before, so there is a sense of duty, and Sensei doesn't want to give up doing that.
It's amazing. Sensei Dauphin? Oh, pardon me, Sensei.
I fly 5 million miles.
Wow.
5 million miles.
Sensei doesn't have any time zone. Literally, I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
Yeah. Sensei sleep when there's no action going on, but other than that, he's always on the go. So,
wow.
For example, we would fly to France to participate in teaching in participate in a demonstration and teaching some seminars. So we would fly a day and a half or all day from Orange County, to different connection and get to Paris. And then when we get to Paris, we would get picked up and we go straight to the venue, and we would teach, 4 hours straight. And then by the time it's done, we get to a restaurant to eat. It was 2 a.m. And then we would get checked into a hotel. It'll be at 4 a.m. And then we got up at 6 a.m. We got in a car and we drive 3 hours south of France and then teach all day and all night. So that that kind of give you a glimpse of what Sensei does. And he would do this, consistently every week, sometimes 2 trips in the same week in different time zone.
And both of you, your eyes are lit up talking about this. You love it.
I think so, absolutely. Absolutely. Sensei lived for this, and and there's a big part of me that also enjoyed it. I loved it. I love every moment of it for 15, 20 years straight doing it with Sensei, traveling until I got married.
Right on. Sensei Dauphin, you had a couple questions?
I did. One question I have a question about the end of this month. So Sensei Demura is going to be in Vancouver, and Sensei Thanh Nguyen, I just want to let you know that Sensei Legacy and I are going to be in Vancouver from the 25th until September 3rd. And so if Sensei Demura needs anything at all while he's in Vancouver, he can consider us people who would come. If he needs a coffee at 2 o'clock in the morning, we'll be the two guys who will drive it over to him if he wants that.
No, don't worry about it. Production take care of me.
Nah. He's right. They will.
Okay, but it's still the offer is still there.
That's funny.
We have production people taking care of him. We have one of my senpai, Kevin Suzuki, will be traveling with Sensei as well. And Kevin has been with Sensei since he was 4 years old. So Sensei will be in good hands. And production people is also Sensei students as well. So he's in good hand, but by all means, absolutely, I appreciate your offer. And, you know, stop by and say hello to Sensei, and don't bring any coffee. Don't drink coffee anymore. Sensei used to drink coffee like it's just regular water, but it's not good for him. So
okay, I won't bring coffee then. But the question,
really appreciate the offer.
Okay, I just want you to know you have friends there in that city and in that country that are happy to help in any way. But and very fortuitous that we're all going to be in Vancouver at the same time. Like, very interesting that we're going to be meeting up with Sensei Robert Mustard while we're in, who lived in Japan for a long time, fairly famous Aikido practitioner who's there. But my question for Sensei Demura is, this is something that we talked about when we did our pre-call. With all these things going on, dialysis, tumors, I know he has a fairly extensive set of DVDs that have been released on kobudo. And I want to hear Sensei Demura's comments on these DVDs that he's released. Why did he choose to do it? What does he feel people will learn from this? I've already looked at a couple of them and I think they're fantastic. I hope people go out there and look for them and purchase them. But any comments on those DVDs, Sensei Demura?
The reason I made this DVD because I'm 83 years old. I'm getting older. If I die, all kata is gone. Therefore, something I want to keep into my memories. That's the reason I made all in a kobudo video. Karate, we have enough people, so I don't worry about it. But kobudo, it's not too many people. So some kata people don't remember, and so I just keep for future.
Well, thank you, Sensei, for doing that. I'm going to be purchasing those within the next 48 hours.
Yeah.
You appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a gift that we can do that, like, and put stuff down in a record that didn't exist 150 years ago. Speaking of, it's now time, Sensei, for something we do with all of our guests, which is called the 10 questions. And so we say answer as impulsively as you like, but then expand as much as you want. So
right.
the first question, what is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
Like I said, make the perfect person.
Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
My mother.
Who do you believe is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Basically, my sensei. He teaches me a lot of things.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your martial arts?
I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm not living that much.
You'll be here, Sensei.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
If heaven exists, what would God say to you if you get there?
I'm not sure.
Sensei have a funny story about that. I don't think you remember, but if I may, I can tell.
Please.
So, you know, Sensei had gone over the years, especially the last 15 years ago or so, Sensei have a lot of physical health episode. And so the last one was the hematoma that would have taken his life. And so we all was worried as well. So Sensei said that he was in the elevator, it was going up. And when he got to the top and got out of the elevator, and God said, yeah, it's not your time yet, get out of here. He's came back to Earth. And here we are.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite film or television martial artist?
Well, Pat Morita is like my brother,
Mm.
brother. I talked a lot of things in my life, his life. He gave me advice. And every New Year, I go to his house. And we talk and we eat. A lot of things we do.
Mm. It's lovely. Is there a martial artist living or dead in all history who you'd want to train with the most?
I was a little younger. I was a Mr. Chibana training, but I should. I like to go more. I did only one day, and I just don't remember much. So I like to get more Mr. Chibana.
And was there anything about him that made you go, "Oh man, I wish I could have spent more time with him"?
No, I don't think too late. So past never come back.
Yeah. If everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit that martial arts has given you, what would it be?
If for the benefit that everybody gets to.
I don't understand.
I think Sensei, the answer Sensei would say would be all of us as students.
Yeah.
Oh no, everybody in the world is my family, including all you guys.
What a beautiful answer.
A karate family.
Yep. What do you consider to be your greatest achievement?
I call Mizuno Kokoro, water mind. Water is dirty clothes, clean them up. Water is a plant, animal, human, we need water. Water is never change it. For example, put in a square glass, put the water evenly fed. You round the water in a cup, you put the water around the cup. For doesn't have any space. That's kind of the way people should know wherever you go, fit the other people. That's kind of the way I teach karate. Mizuno Kokoro.
Thanks for that. And do you have a greatest regret?
You have a greatest regret.
Oh, thank you.
No, regret. You regret anything. Regret like you regret.
Oh, well, but I have a karate family. That's it. That's how I want it.
No regrets when you have the karate family.
No, just karate family. That's all. Everybody international. It's all my friend.
So that's our 10 questions. Thank you for that. And I want to jump back if you don't mind. So we're hanging around in the late 70s. You've started to shoot some movies. Not a bad job. And again, you've touched on Pat Morita. What brought you toward the Karate Kid? And I'd like to ask you, did you know that it was going to be that successful? I mean, did you have any sense? Because it's one of the reasons I'm in karate and about most of the people I know who are my age or younger. Well,
Karate Kid, my agent called me. They had to go to audition. So I went to audition and they gave me a script. And I thought a little part, but I look at one of the pages, another pages, everything Miyagi, too many. So I said, I don't want to do this. So I put down and I said, I go home. I just left there. Then later, production called me. Pat Morita, now we got the Miyagi for Pat Morita, but he doesn't know karate, so I want you to help. So I went over there. I know him a little while ago from Las Vegas show, was doing there. So I talked to him, and then since I started 27 years, he's a stunt double.
Wow. Did you hit it off immediately? Did he pick up the karate, and was that an immediate connection?
Oh no, he doesn't walk too much, so I had to do everything he cannot do. I do it.
Yeah.
Jump over the building and driving the car, turn over, all kinds of stuff.
And it sounds like you really enjoyed that time.
Yeah.
And when it came out and was just a massive hit, I mean, a huge film.
Yeah, my dojo was a pack.
Ah, I bet it was.
You can get in there. So some people outside the parking lot line up to practice. That
And
meant,
did they all know that you were effectively Mr. Miyagi, or were they just there because karate became so popular?
and the karate was a bit popular. People don't know till they come to the dojo, then they find out.
They're like, shit, I picked the right one.
Yeah, and the Pat Morita, every my banquet and tournament, he always comes to see me. And him and the Chuck Norris, both of them, always great for me.
It's lovely. I want to ask you a question about Chuck Norris, but right now I want to throw it to Sensei Dauphin. I know he has a question.
Man, I have so many questions, Sean.
Just
like
shoot,
as Sensei
shoot.
Demura is talking, like more and more. I just want to say, Sensei Demura, like when I watch The Karate Kid now, and I picture Daniel LaRusso running across that field and getting the crap kicked out of him by all those bullies.
Yeah.
And, you know, in your mind, you picture Pat Morita jumping off the garbage can over the fence and fighting all those Cobra Kai guys. Now I know it's you. Like, I'm always going to watch that movie and go, that's Sensei Demura right there kicking the crap out of all those guys. So I just want to share that with you. Sorry, go ahead, Sensei.
That time, we practiced first one with our actors. I use it. But later, John Abizasan, he's the director, he come up and say, the action not so good. So why don't you use your student? So I pick him up 5 of my students. Then I did it. So everybody, one shot, that's it. Bam, 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 that's it.
That's amazing. So not only were you the one doing Mr. Miyagi, but all the other actors weren't them. It was all your students. So you were in there fighting against all your students.
Yeah. One of them and the fence, and Bill Zabka hit Ralph Macho on the nose. He broke nose.
Okay.
His spinning kick, he hit his nose. But Ralph Macho, he just continued. He doesn't stop. So it's a great thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Could I ask?
Sorry, go ahead, Sensei Legacy.
Could I ask if you've watched Cobra Kai?
No.
And how they turned the bad guy into a good guy? Do you think that's good for the students at large?
I don't know, but the Cobra Kai people told me she should need a little more study because they practice kata, Goju-ryu kata. Then right after that, change to Shodokan kata. Yeah, that's not good. Other than that, okay, but Shorin-ryu stay Shorin-ryu, not Shodokan mix.
Yes, I agree.
That's what you need somebody supervisor.
We were actually recently on a one of our dojo in Pennsylvania event, and as you know, Chosen Yuji Okumura, he was there, so we got to hang out for the weekend, and Sensei and Yuji talked quite a bit on those days. It was pretty cool seeing Chosen there.
So,
Sensei Dauphin?
yeah, so Sensei Demura, I also know that you've run one of the largest and longest standing karate tournaments in the history of all tournaments. And I'm just curious to know, you know, with COVID, we've had to shut those types of things down. Sensei Legacy runs a long-standing tournament. What was it like when you started it? How long have you been running that tournament? What do you think is the value of running that tournament for karate competitors? Like, just your thoughts on karate tournaments, your tournament?
Yeah, well, first time we started about maybe 60 people. And then we changed a little bit more organized and smooth move. And then last year, almost 1,000 people show up.
1,000 people.
Yeah.
And are we going to get back to that Sensei Demura? Are we going to have that tournament as soon as possible?
Soon the school release open, I will do it. But right now, not yet.
It's still tough to get into a venue because you know, certain jurisdiction is still have a strict restriction as far as, you know, who's vaccinated and who's not, and exposure. So there's still a concern with the legality portion of it. So it's been kind of tough getting venue and just planning for a year ahead. So, but we're actively looking for it and looking into it, and I'm sure our annual tournament at the third week of February will continue to happen as it usually is.
That's crazy that your tournament is the third week of February. Our tournament that we've run for 40 years is the third week of February. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some kind of parallel situation here.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's super cool.
What was the first year that you did your tournament, Sensei Demura? What was your first year?
It's called Orange Coast College. We was a karate club there, so there we did sponsorship, and we probably 60, 70 people.
And what year was that?
Year that we started.
1968.
Was that at OCC or was it at UCI first?
I started UCI in 1966. Then I give somebody else, and then I took over I think 68, Orange Coast College. Was a small tournament, and then one day we 1,600 people. 1 o'clock in the morning we started competing. So I quit the demonstration, and I invited a lot of movie people. They come up pretty good right now. And start 7 o'clock in the morning, finish 6 o'clock, on time, finish it.
Woo. Amazing.
You know, I used to be one of those competitor in one of those tournaments. You know, if you sit in the black belt division, you pretty much doesn't get to compete until like 8 at night. You're in a freezing gym, you know, and you're cold, and then you don't get to eat, you know. So it was an experience for sure. Long day, and you know the black belt division usually run until like 10 o'clock.
Well, I hope it happens again.
Yeah.
I hope it. The martial arts world needs that karate tournament to happen again. It'd be a beacon for everybody else if you can do it, and I hope you do.
Tournament also, people get together. That's the reason I have a tournament, not just a win and lose. People from a different dojo, people come up, make the friend, and a good friend each other. That's the reason I have a tournament.
Yeah.
Love that. Sensei Demura, you mentioned Chosen Shimbana and also the style Itosu-kai. I'm just curious about Itosu Yatsutsune and your thoughts on that historic figure, Itosu Yatsutsune, and what you think of him or what you might know about him that you want people to know.
I'm not sure. When Mr. Itosu was gone a long time ago, before I started karate. But Mr. Sakagami, Mr. Mabuni, he created Shito-ryu, And but just before he died, he break up 5 away. Mr. Tani Chojiro and Kuniba and Abe and then Mr. Sakagami. They call Mr. Tani called Shuko-kai, and Mr. Kuniba called Seishin-kai. So Mr. Sakagami don't know how to call, so they call it Itosu-kai. That's where Itosu-kai started.
Thank you for that, Sensei. We're always looking for history on those masters from the past, Itosu, Matsumura, Sokan Bushi Matsumura. So thank you for sharing that.
Right.
So I have a quick question before we get back to the sort of path. You talked earlier about the idea of, MMA versus karate, like keeping people toward that. And so let me ask you very straightforward. MMA teaches people how to fight well. They're very fit. They become friends with each other. What is it about karate that makes you go, right, that's fine, but karate is actually what I'd like people to do?
Well, karate is a more mentally exercise. MMA is hitting each other. For example, I was a hematoma, my brain about 2 inches move, and my body completely shut down. I can move. So MMA people, young people that hit so many times, maybe right now it's okay. Maybe 10, 20, 30 years later, they come up same way I have. Move the body. So that's what I'm afraid of.
Yep.
Karate don't have any of that problem. We don't hit each other.
Well, great answer. You can train the same thing, if not more, with the mental.
Yeah.
Without having to give up.
That's right. Yeah. MMA, people don't know right now, but look at the boxer. So many people have a brain problem later. Muhammad Ali, the same thing. Not right away. He come later. That I'm afraid. Maybe 10, 20 years later, they come up like the same way I have right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. We were wondering, Sensei Suino, with your Iaido, is there anything you want to chat about in terms of the Kendo that Sensei's done at all?
Sensei, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Kendo and Iaido as well.
Well, Kendo I started from Mr. Sakagami, Asian Ryu. But later, Taizaburo Nakamura, and he was my Kendo instructor. He created Batodor. So, and he came, I invited him to the United States once. So he came over. He said, I want to be more people to understand Toyamaru Batodor. So I told him, okay, I will do that. So since I'm start doing Batodor.
A lot of people have trouble understanding the difference between Iaido and Batodor. Can you kind of explain the difference between the two?
Iaido is use a sword for cut the air. Batodor is cut the water. That's a big difference. So we don't use non-sharp blade. It's always sharp blade. That's between different. So Iaido people practice so good. I give them a shinken, and they cannot do too much because they're not express sharp one.
So actually, do you create do you cut a pool you create?
No, and the water maybe about 10 inches wide, and that's a human neck area. Human neck. So they cut five different way cut. Then sometimes called dodan, maybe 5, 6 water together, like a one-shot cut. Everything is a sharp sword. We use it.
Sensei, do you have a favorite shinken? How many shinken do you have?
Oh boy.
I have about 200.
Oh.
He's being shy there. I think he has a lot more than 200.
Wow.
Wow.
So 200 shinken, but do you have one shinken that, like, if you could only have one left?
I have a one called Muramasa Tanto. Many years ago, I bought it. That is my most expensive one.
Sensei is a collector.
Yep.
And do you have a favorite one to do bato with? Do you have a favorite shinken to cut with?
No,
He doesn't bring his favorite out to cut.
Mm.
It's in a secret vault.
Sensei, how important is rank?
rank is not important. How much you dedicate to the art, that give you rank. So many people say, I'm 10th dan, I'm 11th dan. I never call myself. I never tell anybody what the dan I am. But people have to look at and they have to find out what value you got. That's it.
Mm. And when I see old videos of you doing your demonstrations or ippon kumite or using bunkai and using an uke, one of the things that's so striking about what you do, whether it's with the nunchaku or whether it's with your bare hands and feet, is how absolutely precise you are. Within a quarter of an inch, and there's no extra or too little space. Is that something you were conscious of? Was that a gift of yours? Is that how you were taught?
Well, very important, the basics. He had all control.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I learned from Japanese village. I was doing the demonstration before, just stop right here, and I no move. People don't give me a clap the hand. Then why I study. So then from now, go this way, look like a hit, he moved the head, then people understand. So then people start clap the hand.
Right.
Then later, they have the main show in the Japanese village. Then in 1944, the first oil shock and the bankruptcy. The 2 days later, I moved to Las Vegas. Las Vegas show for 3-4 years. I did it. Then I quit.
Mm. So you basically, before you ever were on a set, you were already using stunt techniques as a way to show how the martial arts and the bunkai worked.
Yeah.
And do you still do those types of demonstrations? What do your demonstrations look like today?
Well, I can't do it anymore, so I don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I just do something, what I can do.
Mm-hmm. And then do you have students demonstrate things you've shown or done in the past?
That's right. Yeah.
And then, for example, I watched one video from 1969 where it was just a sequence after sequence. It was incredible. And I was wondering, is that something you built out of kata, or is that something where you took kata and went, now I'm going to build something a bit more showy?
Mostly,
so
mostly I pick up from Kata Bunkai.
Sensei Legacy, is there any reason to go outside of kata for bunkai?
Well, Kata have so many Bunkai you can make it. So you have to know every Kata's Bunkai. So then put together.
Sensei Legacy, is there anything not in a kata's bunkai? Is there any move outside the thousands of kata that exist?
I'm not sure.
Asking so legacy.
Huh?
Asking Sensei legacy. Asking.
It's great to hear your opinion too, Sensei Demura.
Well, the thing about outside of kata is facing the enemy. When you do kata, it's a lot of self-discovery. But when you're facing somebody on the street, when you don't know what he's going to do, it's quite different than being in a ring. In a ring, there's a referee. Even in MMA, they will protect the fighter that's losing. But when you're standing in the street, facing an opponent who is either maybe drunk or crazed on drugs, or he doesn't have any sense, feeling, or fear, it's quite a different situation than being in the dojo doing a kata. Even though karate needs kata for sure.
Mhm.
Well,
You cannot dismiss kata.
Mhm.
karate and the street fight are two different stories.
Yes.
Sensei, is there anything you want to talk about before we go? We do what we call going around the horn, where we talk about our time with you tonight and what we learned, and just really just say thanks through our own words. But is there anything you want to finish on, or say before we do that? And then after we do that, we'll also give you the last word.
Yeah, only last one I want to say. Just whatever you do your best. That's the important for me. Doesn't matter how small business you get it, you have to do a good job. Then you can get the next one. But if you do right the job, you can't get any more. So whatever you do your best. That's my last word.
Thanks, Sensei. Sensei Legacy, is there anything you want to say or contribute about our night tonight?
Well, it's really a pleasure to meet you. And the one thing I want to say is that how similar classical martial arts are, and that we all preach the same thing, to have a karate family, a martial artist, regardless of his art, is a family member. I really like that. And that our minds are the same mind. We're doing it for the art and for the betterment of other human beings. And you carry that very well. And we appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Sensei Suino?
Just thank you for sharing those stories about your history and making a bridge between us and some of the early karate figures. Hearing those names and hearing your experiences with them is really wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
Yeah, I feel a little bit emotional, Sean, so I might stumble on my words a little bit here. I actually feel a lot emotional. This is a really unique and great experience to talk with Sensei Demura, a person who, is suffering from dialysis, some tumors. But again, Sensei Demura, I always like to write a lot of notes so that I can prove to you that I've been listening while you've been talking. I really found it impactful that when you talked about the beginning of your career with Sakamani Sensei and seeing Kanazawa fight, that it was always rough every night. There was always injuries and your parents didn't want you to do it. Parents always want to protect us, but we got to go our own ways, right? I think it's really interesting that you fought in the first all-combined tournament. So all the styles together, that's super cool that we could talk to you about that. I have to tell you, that crest that moan that you have behind you, I'm more proud than ever that I have it emblazoned on my back now. I will always tell my students that link to yourself. It was very interesting. Everybody knows Bruce Lee. It was very interesting that your first meeting with him, you couldn't talk the same language as him, and that Dan Ivan was the one who translated for you. And that's a great piece of history to have learned. I also think it was great to learn that Pat Morita liked Chinese food, just like Sensei Suino. The two of them would have got along really good. Um, I like the thought of Bruce Lee and how famous he is with nunchaku, and that he read your book, and that's one of the things that got him interested in that. I have to call out that Sensei Thanh Nguyen mentioned that the most important thing about being a student is loyalty and carrying on that legacy. And I think all the students on this call would agree with that. I like that you said you teach now to make better people, right? Like, I think that's Sensei Legacy just said that, and I agree with that. Your favorite weapon now is the bow from Terra Shinken. And I'll tell you, Sensei Demura, I do a kata called Shinken no Daibo that was put together by a person named Bill Adams, who's going to be on this podcast next Thursday. And again, I probably will never do that bow kata again without thinking about you and your training with Terra Shinken. Gen Bunkai, Gen Professional. I think if we all conducted ourselves more as professionals in and out of the dojo, it would be good. We should be professional martial artists, not amateur martial artists. And that you're trying to make good people. I like that you say today you keep teaching because it's your job to make the instructors do it the right way. And if they do something wrong, you call them and you tell them, don't do it like that. I like that you said traditional karate. Your exact words were, everyone should learn that way. I agree. That's really important. I mean, 5 million miles. Sensei has flown over 5 million miles on an airplane. Incredible. Again, I just want to circle back to your tumor and the dialysis and the fact that you're still teaching and working. No quit. So the next time a student says, I couldn't get to the dojo because there was a train on the train tracks, or I'm going to tell them, look, Sensei Demura has a tumor and goes to kidney dialysis, and he's still teaching and training. So you don't really have any excuse. Like, nobody has any excuse not to come to the dojo if Sensei Demura is still coming to the dojo. I want to encourage everybody to go out and buy that DVD series that Sensei Demura has coming out. I like the answer to the questions. Question number 1 was, be a professional person. Most influential person, my mother, amazing. It's so cool that you trained with Chimbana Sensei even for one day. If I could have trained with Chimbana Sensei or Itosu Sensei or Matsumura Sensei even for one day, I would give almost anything from that. I'm really found it emotional when you said, Sensei Demura, everyone is my family, including you guys. I really like that you feel that way. Your tournament, 1968, 60 people to 1,600 people a few years ago. Rank isn't important. What's important is your devotion to the art and what you contribute to the art. Whatever you do, do your best. I have a saying in here, Sensei Demura, how you do anything is how you do everything. That's what I tell my students all the time. And I think if you do it your best, then you do everything your best. And there's nothing that you shouldn't do your best. I'm truly honored to have talked to you tonight, Sensei Demura. And if you ever want to come on this podcast again, we would welcome you back anytime. If you have a message for the martial arts community, we'd be glad to have you back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sensei, I just want to add to everything that's been said. Such an honor and a pleasure. You know, you really are part of not just the martial arts, but some specific things that are so formative for me. But the one thing that I really take away when you talk is you have such a lack of ego about your path. And as someone who works both in entertainment and also is a martial artist, and you know, sometimes I can get caught up in my own sense of self-definition. And hearing you just move through your own path, and some days you work over here, and some days you're doing stunts on set, and some days you're traveling to teach. It helped me just shed even 1% of my need to identify in some way. And you know, I always talk about how these are lessons for me. coming to host this show. And it's such a privilege to even just have that little bit of who I don't actually need to be unlocked and shed. So I want to thank you for that. And it goes along with one of my favorite things you said, which was the, what excites you most about the next 5 years of your training? And you said you don't know. And I'm always trying to lock down and know things. And the idea that I don't know what my next 5 years looks like either it was a nice reminder. And lastly, the answer to your 10th question about your greatest achievement is functioning the way the water does in terms of your interactions. And as a guy who's always striving for unity so that I act the same way with my teachers, as with my students, as with you, as with my lady, I really appreciated that. So I just want to say thanks so much. I learned so much tonight, and I know there's so much that I'll unpack when I rewatch this. Is there anything else you want to say? You did say it was your last word, but we always throw it to our guests for one last if they want.
Me?
Yeah, you have anything else you want to
No, I don't think so.
Great. Well, we're just going to do one little bit of housekeeping, Sensei, and then we're going to shut it down for the night. Sensei Dauphin, you want to tell us about next week?
Next week is Sensei Bill Adams, longtime friend of Sensei Legacy. I don't want to give it away because he's trained with some fairly influential people in Okinawa and Japan, Tara Shinken being one of them. I'll slip that out, that Sensei Bill Adams is trained with Tara Shinken. So super excited about that. And then we're going to take our week off, and then we're going to move into our judo segment. Sensei Suino, you want to say anything about that?
Well, we're going to have three guests who have done extremely well in judo, have competed or internationally, and have left a big mark on the judo world. So kind of unique. We've been focused on karate and other martial arts. So September is judo month.
And Sensei Legacy and I are going to be doing Judo Month from Vancouver for the first one.
Nice. Thanks, Sensei Dauphin. Thank you to everybody who signed in. It's such an absolute pleasure to have you here, and for you to all be a part of this. And thank you, Sensei Demura. Thank you, Thanh Nguyen. And also to anybody watching on YouTube, hit that like, smash that subscribe button. And I just want to say thanks to people behind the scenes who work to make this happen. If we didn't get to your questions, I apologize. There's just too much. I as always, we barely scratched the surface, and I could just, each of us could have had our own interview with Sensei Demura for 2 hours. So thank you for your questions. And I am sorry that we didn't get to that, but I feel like we got just as much, if not more, as we would have otherwise. And I really appreciate being here tonight, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Sensei.
Thank you.
Sensei. Thanks, Tom.
Pleasure to meet you, Thanh Nguyen.
Likewise, thank you. I felt like we have a kinship, a brotherhood here with the like story. So really appreciate it. And Mr. Legacy, I think Don Warner had actually texted me on the side. He wanted me to say hello to you.
Hi, Don. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Stay healthy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Sensei.
Sensei.